Hello everyone, this is SOB, and I'm going to quickly go over the build you just saw in that Science Odyssey in the solo ISA. First up, the weapons. These are pretty much my normal on most of my builds nowadays. The Terran Task Force Disruptor Beam Array, and 7 Coalition Disruptor Beam Arrays all have the Crit D Damage 3 modifiers on them. The full Iconian set for its lovely 3-piece and 4-piece bonuses, along with all of the nice passive things that it does. Device-wise, slightly different than what I normally do. I've been messing with the Exotic Particle Flood for buffing up my Feedback Pulse and TBR at certain points during the runs. Prototype of Blade of Jevonite Hardpoints for the additional HP. I get about 20k hit points out of that, and that lasts for 15 minutes or until I die. The Energy Amplifier for the 20% Cat 2 to all energy damage. Of course, pretty handy. Then the Reactive Armor Catalyst for the heal over time that it has. Console-wise, the Kabali Samsar Regenerative Integrity Field for its heal. Very handy, especially being that I'm attack. I don't have Miracle Worker. It saved me, as you saw, twice in that run. Then I'm running the 3-piece flagship console set, so that's for this. I'm not using the Science Odyssey console itself. Instead, for the third console, I'm using the Timeline Stabilizer off of the Krenum Science ship we got with this anniversary event. And I'm mainly using that for its Firing Cycle Haste and the cooldown to Bridge Officer and Captain abilities. Of course, Plasmonic Leech, because that's pretty much a given nowadays. Flagship Tactical Computer. Very nice, you can read with the tooltip there. And the Adaptive Emergency Systems console, basically a little mini GDF. And the 3-piece for that is Deadly Response. That gives me up to plus 30% Cat 1 damage. Pretty handy, being I only have 2 TAC consoles. And that gains a stack every time I'm hit while I have a shield facing down, so it's pretty much up most of the time with this setup. All 4 Science consoles are EPG plus Threat Plasma Explosion consoles. Those buff up TBR and Feedback Pulse. Give me those lovely Plasma Explosions and help pull threat off of people in most pug runs and channel runs. Then 2 vulnerability locators with the disruptor modifier, of course. And I do have a combat buff active with my fleet. So from that, you'll notice the resistances are quite high. That gives me plus 40 to all resistances. Gives me plus 20% Cat 1 damage to everything. And gives me a 10% speed boost. So it's very nice. And I only have 210% EPS on this build due to how much weapon power mitigation or drain mitigation I have. If you'll notice here when I hover over a beam, the beam drains 5.7 power, Leech is giving me 2.3, and then Supremacy is giving me another 2. So I'm getting 4.3 power back after every single shot out while Thaw is up. And that basically means that I am draining 1.4 power per beam per weapon cycle. So I felt that I could safely drop an EPS console in that case. Skill tree, just normal Science Ultimate. Not much into engineering because I don't exactly need resistances or power. Specialization-wise, Intelligence Primary, fully maxed out. Strategic Secondary, fully maxed out. Quickly go to the buff stations. Chemosite 1 for the debuff and the nice amount of damage it does. Delta 1 for Delta Prime. Thaw 3. Tac Team 1. Beta 1. Beta 1's very nice for that. Beta healed off, which I'll get to here in a minute. Ensign Universal is set to an Engineer, which has Eng Team 1 on it. The Commander Engineer has Emergency Powered Engines 1, Ox to Sif 1, Emergency Powered Weapons 3, and Dem 3. Very offensive loadout on this. Then the Lieutenant Commander Science has hazard emitters 1, tractor beam repulsors 1, and feedback pulse 2. Go to the DOFs next. So, an energy weapons officer for the stacking crit chance. It's a very rare, but a rare works. The very rare has a 4% chance. The rare has a 3% chance and is like a tenth of the price. Like, I think the purples are around 200 mil now, so you can save a bit of EC if you're going after those DOFs and go for the rares. Agent rule, as I was mentioning before, for the beta heal, every shot out gives me 0.2% of my max hull, so the more HP I have, the more I'm getting out of that. Which is very good with the prototype ablative, as I mentioned before, and then if I have threatening stance active, which I have on most of the time with this setup, I'm getting a nice bit of healing out of that. The emergency con hologram from, I believe, one of the first CCA events. That resets my evasive maneuvers whenever I hit emergency powered engines. Very handy. You see it reset my evasive maneuvers a few times in that run. Bad is the same as still green. Plus 10% all damage for Sporg. Cat 1. Engineering, Marion Francis Stolmer, the systems engineer. It's fairly common. Reduces weapon subsystem drain while dam is up for the first 8 seconds. Then Greg Amal to turn the TBR into a pole. And that helps me get some stuff like the spheres to really shoot at me in a team environment to make sure they've got the aggro on me. Timeline Stabilizer helps me get the maximum effect out of that because you want to have 5 enemies within 3 kilometers of you to get the maximum out of it. And so overall, just very nice. Let's go to the traits next. So, Ablative Shell, pretty common for its heal. Anchored, I didn't sit still very long in that run. I should have sat still a bit more, but I was trying to move around just to get a few misses to help stay alive near the end, so I may replace that with something else in a future run. Then Beam Training, just damage buff, self-modulating fire, shield pen, particle manipulator, as I mentioned with the embassy consoles before. Get the crit chance and severity for TBR and feedback pulse. Beam Barrage, obviously, for the beam damage. Biotech Patch for the bonus healing. Fluidic Cocoon. This is a trait that used to be quite common. Not as many run it nowadays, but on a tank like this, it's pretty good with all the threat you get. You get all the Warp Core breaches also, which proc it, so up to 15% cat, too. Pretty handy. Then Point Blank Shot. It's another reason the TBR with pull helps a bit. It just pull things in closer, get more damage on them. It's not that much, but 10% is pretty nice. Starship traits. Delta Prime. Emergency Weapon Cycle. Supremacy. Invincible, of course. And improved feedback pulse. So, let's see here. Space Reputations. Advanced Targeting Systems. Precision. Enhanced Armor Pen, New Kara Ox Offense, and Energy Refrequencer. All pretty common on a DPS build. But I want you to note that with Delta Prime and improved feedback, in the Science Ultimate, I'm going to go back to my base crit chance, 16.3. I'm going to pull up the parse now for us to look at. My crit chance was 47.24. I've seen this build hit upwards of 53 to 54% crit chance in some runs, but that's how much I'm getting out of all of those crit chance buffs that we currently have. It's pretty crazy. Look at the DPS chart here. You can see where I spiked up. Had it went a bit longer, it probably would have went up to 200k. Let's look at the player combat analysis report. You can look at the damage sources here. I will include a link to the parse in the description down below, so feel free to take a look at it. Let's look at my healing. You see that Kabali console going pretty crazy there. Energy refrequencer for being just, a rep trait. That's 855 healing per second. That's pretty crazy. That's more than my hazard emitters. It's more than my Oxysif. It's more than my Inge team. It's crazy. Ablative Shell, also coming in at 520. And I'll let you look at the rest. Let's see. What's the attacks per second? 7.6 attacks in per second. So, a bit crazy. I almost died a few times there, as you saw. And I was hit 96.65% of the time. So, I'm not going for defense on this build because I want as much stuff hitting me as possible to trigger feedback balls. Anyhow, I hope that this has been an informative video for you. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section down below, and I'll try to respond as quickly as possible.